These are the materials you need. You need your flip-flops. I'll talk more about this in the next lesson. You also need your super glue. There's also a module on this one talking about why I am using super glue instead. You need a glue gun. There are different sizes of glue gun, and they always come with the wax, that is the candle wax that it comes with. You need something pointy but not too sharp. I am using a super glue, a screwdriver. You need a tape rule. You need needle and thread if you do not have a sewing machine, so you can unsew your ruffle. You need a scissors to cut your fabric, to cut your thread and everything you need to cut. You need a ruler, you'd see why in a bit, and you need something to draw circles with. Now I have two, and one is slightly smaller than the other. That's because you need two different shapes of circles for this. Now one of them measures about 2 inches and the second one is about 2.7 or 2.8 inches. Now these are not fixed dimensions, and I would advise you to play around with the dimensions to see the one that works best for you. You'd also need your fabric of choice, and you need a pen or a chalk, something you can use to mark on the fabric and show before you cut it. So I am using a silver pen in this case. So these are the materials you would need to create your own Ankara wrapped flip-flop. Welcome to lesson 2, and we'll be talking about the best type of flip-flop to use. There are various types of flip-flop based on where you're located, and you can just try them out to see the one that works best for you. I started out using this one I'm holding here, and then I went on to use this other one, but I wasn't really a fan because it was multicolored. There are like 2 colors in it, and I think I would prefer to use one that has one color base. So that was when I discovered this type of flip-flop, and this is what I have been using. It is super thick, like see how much force I am using to press the sole. So be rest assured that you or your clients will be wearing this flip-flop for a very long time. It doesn't cut easily, and the sole is really thick, and it comes in different colors. It has black, it has brown, and it has blue. Those are the 3 colors that I have seen it come in. So make sure you check out the next lesson on the type of gum to use. Welcome to lesson 3. We've talked about the materials needed and the best type of flip-flops, and now we're talking about the type of gum to use. There are different types of gums that exist. The one in this plastic container is called Top Bond. This is also Top Bond, but the white one. We've got Hoo Hoo gum, the UHU gum. Some people use it, but these last 2, I have used them and they've worked well for me so far. That is using the super glue and using a glue gun. Now, I'm not saying this is a fixed way of making it. Feel free to experiment, but these 2 have worked really well for me. Welcome to module 2, where we are prepping to make our flip-flops. Now we're talking about how to prep. These are what you would need before you get started. You need your ruler, your tape rule, you need your scissors, you need the 2 small circles, you need your pen, and you need your fabric. Now the very first thing I do is I fold my fabric into 4. It makes it easy for me to work with, and it's quite easy for me to cut. Instead of me just stretching out the fabric and cutting the long straight line, I fold it into 4, and it's a lesser section for me to work with. So that's what we're going to do right now. Just fold your fabric into 4, as you can see me doing in the video. I'm trying not to speed up the video so you can see every process. Now the fabric is folded into 4. So now you're going to take your tape roll or your ruler and your silver pen and cut out 2 inches, like measure out 2 inches in 5 places. 2 inches in 5 places. I would explain why as we go on, but let's do that first. Now, one other advice I would give you is watch through this video before you start your own practical. It will give you the best idea on how to make yours work for you. So I'm just measuring out 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's 10 inches in total. And I like to measure out in more than one place so I can draw a straight line across, and it's going to be easy for me to cut the fabric. So after tracing out, I use a ruler to draw a straight line down, and then I cut it out with the scissors. Okay, and then you just set it aside. So the next thing we're going to do is draw our circle. So I'm just going to open up the fabric. You can actually leave it folded because we need 2 pieces each, like 2 pieces of the big circle and 2 pieces of the smaller circle. So you're just going to trace it. What I like to do is I trace it, I fold it into half, like fold the fabric into two, and then I cut out the 2 pieces at the same time, instead of drawing out 2 pieces of the small and 2 pieces of the big. So just watch the way I do it here. So as you can see, I have the 2 circles all drawn out, and then I just fold the fabric into 2 just around there so I don't waste my fabric, and then cut it out. Now I'm still going to say it again, there is no fixed dimension on how this works, so that's why I always advise you watch through the video. If you want your ruffles longer, if you want your ruffles fuller, you cut more than 5 pieces. But I am working with like a fixed dimension for now, so it depends on how you want your flip-flop to look like. So please watch through to the end, and then you can edit out the parts that you think should be improved on when you're working on your own flip-flops. You can decide you want the ruffles smaller, you can decide you want the ruffles bigger, so you can just experiment and make something work for your brand. It doesn't have to be exactly how I make it. That's what I try to tell my students, people that have trained previously on how to make bags and accessories. Try and experiment. Even though I've taught you the basics, try and experiment on what works best for you. So now we have our circles cut out, so everything we need is all prepped. We have our small circle, we have the big circle, and we have the 5 strips all cut out. So now the next process is on how to wrap your flip-flop, so make sure you watch it. The next lesson is on how to wrap the Ankara flip-flop. I'm going to be wrapping one as though I'm putting a flower, and the other one as though I am not, because I realized that there are actually guys that like wearing Ankara wrapped flip-flop, though they don't want the flowers. So here we go. So you're just going to set 4 of the strips aside, and the round part, we're only going to be working with 1 strip of flip-flop. For this, you need your super glue, your fabric, your scissors, and the pointy but not sharp objects you want to use in inserting your fabric. So first thing I do is cut the fabric in half, and I'm going to use 1 piece for one leg and the other piece for the other of the flip-flop. So you're going to fold it at one end, just as you would see me do in a couple of seconds. So just fold it in, because we don't want the thing is, when you cut fabrics, they kind of unravel at some point, so I don't want those strips of fabric showing. So I fold the 2 ends for a clean look, and yes, there is where we're going to use the super glue and the pointy object. So put a little bit of super glue at the tip right there, and then put the fabric over it, and then use the pointy tool you have to just insert that tip into the hole right there on the flip-flop. At that very end, just use it to press it in. Now because we're using super glue, it's going to stick faster. So after you're sure it's already stuck, you just start wrapping. Okay, as you can see, it's even only one end that is left folded. You don't need to fold the other end, just the end that you're using to wrap. And then you just keep wrapping the flip-flop in a slant motion. You can put super glue at intervals to make sure the fabric doesn't slip or remove. And in case you have not realized it, super glue is kind of waterproof, and that's what I love about this flip-flop. The pair that I have, I've washed it so many times and it has never unraveled. So that is why I like using super glue. The glue gun works as well. So this part I'm using the super glue, you can actually use the glue gun instead. So just apply a little and just keep wrapping. You can decide when you get to the top part not to use the super glue. Just make sure you wrap it around as tightly as you can till you get to the very top. Now this particular part, I'm showing you how to wrap it as though you're selling the flip-flop, or you want to wear the flip-flop like this. So you wrap it at that very end 2 times to make sure it is snug. 2 times. Now the second time you wrap it, put a little bit of super glue and wrap that fabric over it and tuck it into that hole to secure it, because that is where that space in between your toe and your second toe, right? Everything on your leg are called toes, fit into. So you just wrap it around snugly, and then you continue wrapping. You would see that I already wrapped the second leg, if you see there, because I wanted you guys to see the difference. So you'd wrap it to ensure there is no space showing there. As you can see in that first one, there's a little bit of space. It doesn't matter because we're going to cover it with the flower. So make sure there is no space and wrap it directly over the last fabric you made before you wrapped the loop of the flip-flop. I know it's a bit quick, it's a bit tricky, but just watch the video as many times as you can and I assure you, you would understand it. So you continue wrapping till you get to the very bottom. Remember, wrapping a slant motion. Now when you get to the very tip, just put super glue and hold it and then tuck it in as you did at the very beginning. So the wrapping in this process is actually the same thing as wrapping with the other one. The only difference is when you get to the parts where the flower is supposed to be. So as usual, you just put the glue and then keep wrapping till you get to the top. And when you get to the top, you wrap it down the loop twice. And then when you get to the other part of the slippers, you take the fabric over and then you just wrap it over it. Now if you notice in this case, I just put it on top of it and started wrapping because the flower is going to cover that part. But for the other tutorial, I showed you how to glue the fabric really close to each other because we don't want that space at the top showing. But in this one we're doing, there's a little space at the top, which doesn't really matter because your petal is going to cover it. So I'm not speeding up this part because I want to show you how I did the tip really slowly. So keep wrapping till you get to the very bottom. And when you get to the tip, as usual, put a little bit of glue and then stick it around, just stick it down. So I'm using super glue to show you how to do it. So put a little bit of super glue and stick it down and then cut off the extra fabric that you see there. That's a lot of fabric remaining, so just cut it and leave just a little fabric left, as you can see. Now put super glue at that very hole like you did when we were doing it at the beginning, and then use your pointy object to insert that excess fabric inside it. Now if you have any extra at the end, put a little bit of super glue at the end, then tuck it at the bottom of the flip-flop strap. Okay, just there, as you can see, just a little bit of glue right there at the tip, and then I just folded it at the back of it and it looks really clean. Okay, that space at the top doesn't really matter as it matters in the first one because that is going to cover it. So let's get to making the petal. Welcome back to the next tutorial. I'll be showing you how to make the petal that you would attach to the top of your flip-flop. Now remember, we have 4 strips left and we're going to be using 2 for each of the slippers or the flip-flop. Now remember, you can customize it to suit you, so you can decide to use 3 or 4. Let's assume you want the ruffles to be fuller or thicker or bigger. You can even decide to use 3 inches instead of 2 inches. So please watch through the video and then you can now experiment on the one that suits you. Now we're making this without the use of a sewing machine, so this is how you hand sew your ruffles. So you just fold the fabric in half and pass your needle through the tip, and then you just keep sewing it down. Now you sew it in big stitches, not small stitches, so you can drag the thread through. So just watch what I'm doing. Can you see the space I left between the beginning to the other end? And then you just keep sewing like that. Just give it that much space. So give each stitch that much space and keep stitching till you get to the very end of the strip you're sewing. So take your time and keep going. Alright, so just keep going till you get to the very tip, the very end. Remember, big stitches, not too big, not too small, just like mid-sized stitches, so you can drag the thread through to form the ruffles. That's what forms the ruffle. Now when you get to the very tip, as you can see here, I'm just adjusting the fabric down the thread to form the ruffles the way I want it to look. There's no exact way the ruffle has to look if you're hand sewing. So that is what I want mine to look like, and then you just sew the end and tie your thread to secure it. If you do not knot your thread properly, your ruffle will unravel. So I knotted it twice and then just cut off the excess thread, and there we have our ruffles. The next tutorial will be showing you how I made it with a sewing machine, as you can see here, so make sure you watch it. Alright, welcome back to the next session. I'll be showing you how to use a sewing machine to make the ruffles. The last tutorial was on how to use your hand using a needle and thread. So as you can see, I'm just pinching the fabric in to just form little ruffles. You can decide to space them out. You can decide to make them tight. Like if you know how to use a sewing machine, you would understand what I'm talking about a bit here. So remember, you fold your fabric in half, and I'm just pinching the fabric in to form ruffles, as you can see. So you need to be patient with this process and take your time, because since you're using your hand, you can't fold more than 2 to 4 times at once. So sometimes I can fold 3, sometimes I can fold 4, and then you just sew till you get to the very end. And that's how you make ruffles with a sewing machine. You just pinch the fabric in and sew. Remember, you can watch this video as many times as possible so you get the hang of it. And that is how we made this one. So we're going off to the next session, which is how we use this to form the petals. Welcome to the final module where I show you how to assemble. So now we've wrapped our flip-flops and we have our small circle and our big circle. Let's start with the small circle. So what I do is stack them on each other, fold it in half, and just cut it, because I want to split it right to the middle. Now you're not cutting to the very end, as you can see, just cut it to the midpoints, just like that. And that is because this is the base for our petal. My glue gun is on, so you're just going to apply a little bit of glue in like a U shape, just right there where you cut. Pass it under the flip-flop and stick it to the bottom. Stick it from the bottom, okay, just like that. And then just add a little to the tip so you can glue the two together so you have your circle back. Okay, I am going to do this step again for the second one so you see it. So I'm just applying a little bit of the glue to the sides so that the fabric totally sticks to the straps of the slippers. So let's do it for the second pair. Take your fabric circle that has already been cut, apply the glue gun in a U shape, put it at the bottom, and then stick it to that part there. Just take it up and let it stick. Hold it for a couple of seconds so it sticks. Add a little bit of gum to the tip and glue the other part over it so you have a circle. And then to secure it in place, just put a little bit of gum underneath the straps and just glue it down. And we have successfully secured the base of the flip-flop. So the next thing now is to do the petal. So let's just set that aside. We have these two big circle strips. Now remember, we have the one we sew with machine and we have the one we hand sew. So let's start with the one we did with the machine. You're just going to apply the gum in a circular motion right there at the very tip, just like that. Apply just one layer and then start gluing the fabric over that circle. Remember, you can watch this as many times as possible so you can finally grasp it. As you can see, I'm using my hand to hold it down so it doesn't move around, and then using the other hand to go around in circles. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. Now when you're going over, you're going to put the glue in like 2 layers. You're going to put it right at the bottom of the first layer, and then you're going to put it again like around where your stitches are to secure the fabric. So I'm putting it in like 2 layers. Let me explain. Now you have the fabric like that. When you're putting the glue, we're going in this type of circular motion, okay, kind of like a spiral drawing till you get to the very middle. So that's what we are doing with this fabric. So you're just going to keep putting the gum. Remember, you put the glue on that place where you sewed, and then still put it again at the bottom layer and then stick the fabric to it. Remember, each is 2 strips for each flip-flop. So the second strip, to attach it, I'm just going to put a little bit of gum there where it ended and glue the second strip to it, just like that. Okay, to secure it in place. And then we'll continue the process. Just put the gum around it. Okay, so let's just keep gumming it. Put the gum on that layer where we sewed, and then still put again on the bottom layer, and then just keep going in a circular motion till you get to the very tip, till you get to the middle of the circle. So we're just going to keep doing this. It will take a while for you to get the hang of it, I'm not going to lie to you, but believe me, the process is quite simple and seamless. So feel free to watch through the video as many times as possible before you start practicalizing it. So keep going till you get to the very end. Keep applying the glue gun. Make sure it is secure so the ruffles doesn't come off. And you also have to work really fast because they dry really fast as well. So that is what it looks like. So now let's go to the other one that we hand sew. It's still the same process, guys, the same process. Whether you machine sew or you hand sew the ruffles, it's still the same process. Put the gum in a circular motion and keep sticking the fabric and keep going in circles till you get to the very middle of the fabric. So keep going. And we've actually gotten to the middle here. If you notice, I even have some extra fabric, so it happens in some cases. So I'm just going to snip off the extra fabric, use the glue gun to secure it so it doesn't unravel, and then just glue it down. And guys, we have successfully made the ruffles for the Ankara Wrapped Flip-Flop. And there it is. You really cannot even tell the difference between the one I ruffled. So now we're going to attach it to the base. So just put a little bit of gum there and glue it to the bottom, just like that. And use your fingertips to just secure it. Just hold it down for a couple of seconds. So make sure it is secure, as you can see. And then look around. Wherever you see a space that it is not properly secured, you use the glue to just secure it, and that's what you do all the way till you get to the very end. Just keep checking. Any parts you see that is a little bit opened, use the glue gun to secure it. See this part, the top is a bit opened, so I'm just going to put a little bit of gum. Also be very careful, the glue gun is really hot. It has burnt my fingers so many times, so be very careful. And you're just going to keep repeating that process till there are no spaces anymore and you're sure it is properly secure. I also just glue the other ends, like where the flip-flop straps are. I just glue those parts down so it is properly secured and it wouldn't come off. So I'm going to repeat this process for the second leg of the slippers. So you're going to do the same thing. Get your ruffles, put glue around it, and then stick it to the base that you already made. Hold it down for a couple of seconds with your fingertips to secure it in place, and then just keep looking around. Wherever you find a place that it is not properly secured, use the glue gun to secure it in place. And that is how you make an Ankara Wrapped flip-flop. Remember, if you have any questions, you can also always ask me in the comment section of this video. And you just keep going ahead. And wherever you see space, you just glue it down. It's quite easy once you get the hang of it, no kidding. And I cannot wait to see the flip-flop you created. Please send it to me via mail. I will be so happy to receive them. I like to do a little bit of extra and I just apply cover button to that very tip. This step is not compulsory, it is optional, but it's just something I do to distinguish my brand out there. So you can figure out something to use. You can use sequins, you can use stones, you can use buttons, something to just make your brand stand out. And there we have it, guys. Ankara Wrapped Flip Flop done and dusted. Remember, if you have any questions, you ask. Thank you so much for watching. Can't wait to see what you